Today I have another anniversary review for the album Californication by the Red Hot Chili Peppers. The album was released on June 8th, 1999. It is celebrating 25 years. This was considered a breakthrough for the band. I've heard a lot of people cite this as their best album. I will be talking about the history of the band in the 90s, the recording process, the singles, and some of the deep cuts. I'll even talk about a TikTok trend that talks about how this band predicted the future with the lyrics of one of their songs. So I will be getting into all of that. First, a little background on the album. John Frusciante comes back to the band. He was on both Blood, Sugar, Sex Magik and Mother's Milk. This album also showed the band evolving their sound. There was less funk and more of a radio-friendly alternative sound. The song lyrics were about serious topics such as death, drugs, suicide, and California. This was also their most successful album. Sold over 15 million copies worldwide, with 7 million in the US alone. There were a lot of hit singles, which I will be talking about later. It was also a comeback album of sorts, as their previous album, One Hot Minute, was not very popular. Let me also say One Hot Minute was also kind of a dark horse album. I've seen it ranked very low on discographies. Now for the history section of the video. I'll begin in the early 90s. They released one of the best albums of all time, Blood, Sugar, Sex Magik, in 1991. This was released in the middle of the grunge explosion. It was a 3-month period where all these classic albums were being released. There was Pearl Jam's 10, Soundgarden's Bad Motorfinger, and Nirvana's Nevermind. And Blood, Sugar, Sex Magik was big, but the excessive touring made it very exhaustive. And for that reason, John Frusciante left the band during their 1992 world tour. He was replaced by guitarist Eric Marshall at first. Then afterwards they got Dave Navarro, who was on the aforementioned album, One Hot Minute. Dave Navarro left in 1998 and John Frusciante came back to the band. This led to Californication, the subject matter of this video. Let's talk about the recording process. The album was recorded by Rick Rubin. In my previous video for Slipknot's Volume 3, I spoke about how Slipknot did not enjoy working with Rick Rubin. But it appears that the Red Hot Chili Peppers had a positive experience. Rick Rubin has always been someone who tells bands to write lots of songs. His strategy is to have bands write up to 100 songs and then they can select the 12 best for the album. This way the band can experiment with different styles and see what works and see what doesn't. Rick Rubin also worked closely with the band and gave a lot of feedback. It appears Rick Rubin has worked well with this band. I've heard other bands say they didn't enjoy working with him, but that's a topic for another video. I found it interesting they had a pretty standard studio setup. They recorded the album live in the studio. There were minimal overdubs. Anthony Kiedis recorded his vocals in a separate vocal booth and kept some separation between the instruments. There was some leakage of sound. The band recorded about 30 songs in about a week, with 3 or 4 songs on the first day, and then after that they would record maybe 4 or 5 on the day after that. The engineer on the album was Jim Scott. He wanted to capture the energy of the band playing live and not have a lot of overdubs. Anthony Kiedis recorded about 3 or 4 songs a day, and he also worked with a vocal coach. Some people criticized the production because they used a lot of compression, but this was during that time, it was part of the loudness war, so a lot of albums sounded like this. Let's talk about some of the singles. The first single was Scar Tissue. This was very successful. Peaked at number 9 on the Billboard Hot 100. Songs about addiction and a journey to sobriety. It was specifically focused on heroin addiction. The lyrics talk about emotional scars and healing from past traumas. A lot of this was from personal experiences by Anthony Kiedis. The band wanted to start writing some more serious material, but some of their material in the past was a little sarcastic, but they wanted a song with a positive message. Then there's a song, Around the World. Second single. It was written by the band members, and this one is about Anthony Kiedis' experience traveling the world. He drew inspiration from the 1997 film Life is Beautiful. That was a big influence for the tone of the song. The song is more of a throwback style where you can hear elements of funk and psychedelia. The main guitar riff was written by John Frusciante, and it was another popular single that did pretty well on the modern rock and mainstream rock charts and has been a staple in their live shows. We have another single called Other Side. This is the third single. How long will I slide? Song about addiction and the battles one must face. The Songs about the self-destruction and looking for redemption. The song also mentions one of the former guitarists, whose name is Hillel Slovak, and he died of a heroin overdose in 1988. It's another song which has some funk, rock, and psychedelia. Peaked at number 14 on the Billboard Hot 100. Now let's talk about the title track, California. It's interesting because it has recently gone viral on TikTok because a lot of users are saying that the lyrics predicted things that have happened since 1999. They mention a few things, so I'll give specific examples. Little girls from Sweden dream of silver screen quotation. There's one line, little girls from Sweden dream of silver screen quotation. They think that's a prediction of Greta Thunberg's rise to fame as an activist. Then the other line, psychic spies from China try to steal your mind's elation. And that's a reference to the popularity of TikTok, which is owned by a Chinese company. And there were a few more. I'll read one more. They say, space may be the final frontier, but it's made in a Hollywood basement. And this is saying a reference to space exploration being staged or fake. Now, I'll give my personal thoughts. I think it's kind of a stretch, but some of the lines were interesting. I don't think the Red Hot Chili Peppers are like prophets or anything like that, but I think it's just fun. But I don't really think it's really that real. Now for another song, something different, and that's Road Tripping. It's an acoustic folk rock song and one of the few songs by the band that doesn't have any drums in it. It's a song about the members going on a road trip along the Pacific Coast Highway, also known as The One, from Los Angeles all the way up to California. And they mention things like being fully loaded with snacks and supplies, ready to leave this town, get lost anywhere in the USA, and things that describe the imagery of the California coastline. But it's another song I've always liked. It's a different type of song from the band. It's very laid back, and it's a relaxing type of song. Then there's a song, Parallel Universe, another song that features funk, rock, and psychedelia. It's about the interconnectedness of reality. They talk about being inside a parallel universe and wondering what came first. Talk about can you breathe underwater. They make references to the cosmos. It's that type of stuff. This one has some really cool guitar playing by John Frusciante, and Flea has some funky bass lines, and Chad Smith has a really great drum beat in this one. And it's also played live often, one of their most popular songs. I want to talk about one of the deep cuts called Easily. Not released as a single. I've always liked it. It's about love and letting go. They make reference to Shaolin monks and another song with some funk and rock in it. That's some really cool guitar work by John Frusciante. Another song that's often played live and also considered one of the most underrated songs from one of their most popular albums. So let me know, what do you think of Californication? Is it your favorite album? I did a ranking of the Red Hot Chili Peppers, I think, a couple of years ago. I ranked this at number 1, but for me it's a close tie for number 1 between this one, Blood Sugar Sex Magik, and Mother's Milk. I think those are their 3 best albums. I could probably go either way depending on what day it is. I think it's a great album. It shows their change. They're shifting towards a different sound because everything after this had more of a commercial friendly sound as opposed to the heavy funk of their albums of the 80s. Even though I think Blood Sugar Sex Magik was the biggest turning point of the band. I think it's one of their best albums. Let me know, what do you think? And here's that ranking I was talking about. I'll stick that right there. Check that out. Please like this video. It helps me with the YouTube algorithm. Please subscribe if you have not already. I do rock and metal reviews, rankings, and more. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.